So I want to welcome everyone to 601 this Wednesday evening. This is March 31st, 2021. And we're all here together. I'm Jennifer Hostler.
I'm Kaylee Hargrove.
And I'm James Brewer Calvert, and my pronouns are he, his, and him. And we're delighted to welcome you to First Christian Church of Decatur. Today's a big day.
Today is Trans Day of Visibility, which is set aside each year as kind of that day where we essentially stands opposite to Trans Day of Remembrance, which is meant to remember trans people who have been killed because of hate crimes, just simply because of who they are. So today is about celebrating the life of trans people. And as a trans person myself, one of my biggest hopes is that this day isn't a day that has to be celebrated in the future. Because hopefully we don't have to fight for visibility to be who we are. So as we celebrate this day, it's also a day of recognizing that the struggle to be recognized for the person that God created you to be is still ongoing. And it seems to be a heightened issue this year. And it seems that it's been building. And so we wanted to take time as a church on this day to share our stance that we stand with the transgender community. We believe that trans women are real women, trans men are real men, non-binary people are non-binary people.
Okay, so one thing, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful statement. Thank you. We were talking about wanting to lay down some definitions, and I found in this book, The Bible and the Transgender Experience by Linda Tetro Herzer, a way for us to have a foundational statement. The words gay, lesbian, and bisexual refer to one's sexual orientation. Sexual orientation, generally speaking, has to do with whom one is attracted to romantically. The word transgender, broadly speaking, refers to one's gender identity and/or one's gender expression. Gender identity has to do with a person's internal sense of themselves, whether they know themselves to be a woman, a man, or possibly both or neither. Gender expression has to do with how people outwardly express their gender through dress, mannerisms, hairstyles, vocal inflections, and so on. So I had a conversation with someone who is trans in our community, and I said, what would you need to hear from someone like me? You know, a pastor of a church, someone who's straight, and yet an ally. And that's what she said. She said, we need you to say you're an ally. We need allies. And we need to know that we have your support. We need to know we have your acceptance. And we need to know that you're standing with us. And we need to know that you will call Congress and the Capitol and say, stop criminalizing transgender children and youth and anyone. And if you can do that, that'll be fine. And I said, I think we can do that.
So there is a thing with allies. The fact is, we need allies. The majority of the population is cisgender, which means they identify with the gender that they're born as. That means that most people don't have one of the most basic elements of who they are represented as a mere political ideology. As a trans person, we don't always get spoken of as real people. We're spoken of as a political agenda, as
a foil, as something to be over and against.
Yeah.
Right.
As a concept, not necessarily as a human being. As a person who, oh, this is an idea versus a human being. And I think that's important to visibility, to go, who are real people? And there used to be the sense when people talk to trans people, they go, or in that space, we go, oh, I never met a trans person before. And the answer would be, well, that you know of. You're not sure. And that's a different question, right? Can you think about there as being individual people? And I think you get the sense, it comes from the early gay movement, where they said, people like Harvey Milk would say, if they met an individual person, they're more likely to actually see you as a person and see it as a real sort of space. And that tends to be really important. And that's probably one of the points of having visibility.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that as well. That honestly, it took me meeting people and understanding that people are more than ideologies before I could even take the time to look at myself and to reflect on who I am. Because it took me a long time to figure it out. And once I did, it was like all the pieces came together. It's kind of like a puzzle where up until you put in that last piece, you have no idea what it says. But once you put that last piece in, it's like, oh, everything here makes sense. And that's what it was like for me, was to kind of finally understand like all these elements of my life that didn't make sense. And the context that I was given told me I needed to understand it a certain way, and it just didn't line up for over 30 years until finally I put it together. And I mean, now I'm happy that it did.
There's an element of bravery and courage that comes from saying to the world, this is who I am. And it's really important to me that I be comfortable in my own skin. And on a day of visibility, it's important for the world to say, we see you as you want us to see you.
Yeah.
Rather than we see you as we want to see you.
Exactly.
Something that Monica Cross said at the Transgender Day of Remembrance that we hosted last year with Johns Creek Christian Church was, she said in her sermon, and she's a trans woman pastor in California.
Exactly.
And Reverend Monica Cross said, when you're trans, every breath takes courage. And that hit me. That hit me right here, to think that every breath I took would take courage. And so that helped me to open my heart and my mind even more to my trans brothers and sisters and neighbors.
I think it's a huge thing. I think something that comes out of that also is just the fact that you made the comment of, oh, she is a trans woman of color who's a pastor.
Right.
That in and of itself already says a lot. And in fact, if you would have thought about this 15 years ago, those would have seemed like a dream. It's like, who could I point to where that would be the case? And so I think it's important to have sort of visibility there. And I think the trans community has had to deal with this for many, many decades of this. In fact, you can go all the way back to, the sort of, the line between having internet and not having internet, and just thinking about what the difference of visibility was, and the difference of not being alone. And then to go, wait, there's others like this. Oh, wait, there's people who are trans who are Christian. That was not a given. People would just think, well, it's just me. I'm strange. I don't belong. And then you're not surprised at why there is, there are attempted suicide rates in the 40% ranges. And so I think there's a lot to helping people sort of become sort of their best self by being able to sort of go, wait, there's other people, there are stories, and maybe one of those stories fits, makes sense, and I can move forward.
I think something that's really important for the wider community to know, that as the three of us are having this conversation, we want you to know that this is a safe place,
Absolutely.
that you have support and love and a community, regardless of who you are or where you are. That First Christian Church of Decatur, when we say we're open and affirming, that means we love you as you are, because God loves you as you are. And that, so for the young person who's wondering and thinking, for the adult who's wondering and thinking, for the neighbor, for someone, whether you're around the seas, overseas, or right here next door, we're here for you. And we see you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other thoughts?
I don't know. I don't really
Good.
have too many thoughts.
It's like the beginning of a conversation, right? This is not an ending. This is a beginning.
Well,
Go
I think
ahead.
it is very much a beginning of a conversation,
Right.
and I think it's important, in terms of visibility,
Right.
to see that for those, and all, not just in people who may be in a trans community, but I think every community that is sitting in the margins, or doesn't feel like you belong, wherever that is, whatever that is, know that, not only are, one, welcome in this space, make sure that's clear. Number two is that there are stories to begin to build on, and you can go, wait, there's a way forward. And this is so important. And I think as we begin to see a lot of these stories as universal stories, then we begin to realize why it's important that we stand in each of these cases.
Beautiful. Let's wrap this up with that, and with this, and with this. So thank you so much for your participation and for your love and support. And we send you our love and our greetings, our prayers. We hope to see you Sunday.
Yeah.
Easter's coming. And there's a Monday, Thursday service that's going live tomorrow. And there's a Good Friday service on Friday night at 7. And Easter morning we'll be here, right here. You are welcome in God's house.
Yes. You are welcome in God's house and welcome at the table.
Welcome at the table. Beautiful. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.